Awesome. So the premise of today's discussion was essentially questioning whether or not you really can ever truly, like, definitively say that you know something. And yeah, I suppose what we'll do is we'll start with an icebreaker and then we'll jump into it. And Cam, you're going to have to hold on to your seat on this one and not get too political. But yeah, okay. So essentially, we're going to have the next maybe 30, 40 seconds to come up with a time when you like believed in something. But if you really actually had to think about it, it was probably wrong, or better yet, the last time that you were truly confidently wrong.
I'll go. Shall I go first, Alex? 'Cause I got one.
Yeah, yeah, go.
Um, I guess, Rachel, is this your first time on an Innovators Breakfast call? So I can't hear you.
No?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah.
Yes, first time. Hello.
Hey, well, welcome to the Innovators Breakfast. It's awesome to see new faces. Oh, I mean, you've been before, have you?
Yes, it's my second time.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we got. Anyway, we do these icebreakers, right? And we pose a question and we pass on to someone else in the in the group until everyone's had a go. So I'll go first. I'm Dan, founder of INSO, for those who don't know. And yeah, my one. It took me a while to think, but then it just came to me in the shower just before the call. I had this moment in a previous job. I'm not going to say which job, where I had this strong belief that I wasn't allowed to go to a meeting because I wasn't dressed appropriately. And I had a shirt on like this with a collar, but it wasn't like a kind of a work shirt, like a smart suit shirt. And it just got me thinking, like, in today's day, like, surely wearing a suit and tie doesn't equal being competent or professional. And then it was this whole, I'm right and they're wrong. And I actually don't know. If I take a step back and pause and I think about human perception and professionalism, okay, so the thing that I'm confidently wrong about is suits have a place in the modern workplace. That would be my tangible story to throw out there. And I still don't know the answer, to be honest, but that's my one. I'll hand over to Albert next because he knows the drill.
Yeah. So probably for me, I was thinking about two different cases, but for me, it happened like a few weeks ago. And we were in Zadar in Croatia, and I was super confident that we can get to the historical center this way. And I was actually so confident that I walked the completely opposite way than it was right, because I don't know, I just looked at the map. It looked like it was the place that I thought that I know because I've been there like twice before. But because it looked so familiar, I actually thought I'm at a totally different place. So I was being really stupid for being so confident that I walked a different way. Yeah.
Wow.
And I choose Cameron to go next.
Okay. When it comes to what you know and what you don't know, I think it's consequential. You can categorically know things that have consequences. Like, I know if I drop a hammer on my foot, it's going to hurt. Don't need to do it. I know that it will. But when it comes to things that, that aren't direct, that don't have immediate consequences, you can never know. There is no point of, I know this, I know that. Like, you just have to accept that there will always be aspects that you don't have available to you. Someone else might, but none of us know everything. The fact is, most of us probably know nothing. I know nothing. That's for sure.
Says the guy building space rockets and satellites, and there's no hope for us if you don't know anything.
Think about it. The combined total of all human knowledge relative to that, I know absolutely nothing. Being wrong. Well, as you just mentioned, I build a space company. But the problem is I'm not a physicist or an engineer. So I will tell my engineers and my team lots of things about, what was it the other day? We're trying to accelerate. Well, I'm trying to conceptualize it's like a magnetic railgun, a launch system for, if I build it in orbit, we can launch cargo to Mars and have a receiver around Mars. And then my engineers confidently told me, okay, accelerating mass to the speed that you want it. Materials can't handle that, so we're just going to tear them apart. So that's the no-go. But catching it, which I thought was fairly simple, no, I was just completely wrong. Everything that I thought about magnetism and slowing down metal objects and things in space, yeah, no, I had it completely wrong. So I had a group of engineers be like, right, okay, so you can't do this because, you can't do this because, you can't do this because. Yeah, but at least then we went through the refinement process of figuring out, okay, so what adjustments can we make so that we could make this sort of feasible. Still working on it.
No, I love it. Who's next?
Let's go with Doug.
Right. Can you hear me? I haven't
Got you,
checked
Doug.
our setup. I was on a call the other day, and I was using a microphone from a headphones that are down beside me that I haven't used for a couple of years. I don't know how it selected that as the microphone. I'm trying to work out what the theme is here. Is this things we think we know that we don't?
Also, just essentially, or the last time you were wrong, where you thought you knew something, after a little bit more education, you realized it was actually completely left field.
Well, there was something that very trivial that happened the other day, that I was trying to get somewhere and following this map. I think it was Google Maps, but I saw this junction and I had a feeling that it was down this particular road. I don't know how I got that feeling, but it just seemed right, and it seemed like a bit of a shortcut. And I looked at the map and I thought, well, that should be left rather than right on the map, facing the way I'm facing. But I still went down it anyway, which was really stupid. Why go down a road that's in the wrong direction according to your?
Yeah, right.
It just
Yeah, I'm not
didn't
the only one.
make sense, and I don't know why I did it.
You missed that
And it did
first
turn out to
example.
be in the wrong direction, which I found. I mean, it made the journey take a fair amount longer.
It's interesting that
It's
the two walkabouters on the call are the ones with the worst sense of direction. So hopefully you don't lead the walkabouts too often. But thanks, Doug. Who's next? I think we've got Rachel and Armin to go.
Rachel.
Thank you, Doug. I guess the more you know, the less you know. There's what is it, the Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that. So, and that's been the biggest learning as you get older, is that you think you know stuff and you don't know anything. I guess inspired a little bit by your tale, Dan, is that when I left the corporate world and started going on my own, I thought to be successful, you had to do a certain thing, and perhaps look a certain way and say the certain things and offer the certain things. And I was absolutely convinced about that. It didn't feel good, but I was absolutely convinced about that until I realized that the corner of the internet that I was looking at was very narrow. So I started to sort of see a little bit people who did have different points of view, different approaches, different ways of doing stuff. And suddenly it all opened up and I could see that you can sort of be who you are and express in the way you want to express and still be a success, however you define success. So that's cool.
Love it. We'll dig into that a little bit more because I'd love to find out what you do. I guess, yeah. So that leaves Armin, right?
Yeah, I was really thinking about the situation. I have the same experience for, the mapping experience that Albert and Doug mentioned, where I think every one of us, sometimes we think that we know more than Google Map or Waze or stuff like that. I think it's a common sense in the board. But one of my own experiences is about actually cooking some pancakes. And I was cooking pancakes for about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years. And for 5 or 6 years, I was doing it wrong, but I couldn't accept that, and once a cook in a hotel, a famous hotel in Tehran, told me that you do some steps just upside down, and, some of the steps are really vice versa. And after that, my confidence was crashed actually in that field. And it's getting better these days. I'm doing just, by the instructions as he said. But, at the time, my confidence, just fell down.
That's an interesting one because actually, then I presume the output is better of this new way of doing pancakes for you. Like, did you find your own method that actually could create a new version of pancakes that would just only need to be adopted by the rest of the world for it to become the standard? Like, that's an interesting one to go into. Like, why were you so confident in your method, and what was so good about the new method that made you change and kind of get rid of your old method?
I think the credit of that cook in that hotel is the most important thing. And, because of the credit of himself and what he said, I accepted that and, just do the thing as he said. And not because, any changes in the taste of the pancake or the shape of the pancake, just because he said it and because he was famous. So because of that, yes. it's just mental, not actually
Mm.
you can see the difference between two types of pancakes.
It's a really interesting point that, in a sense, like a lot of people assume, and rightfully so, that the appearance, kind of alluding to Rachel and Dan's point, is the leading factor a lot of the time for competence or why something's right or wrong, the credentials, everything like that. And I'm sure Dan can speak to this, but his messages on innovation hasn't really changed. But post doing the TED Talks, it's like people kind of just absorb it like it's the gospel. But it's like nothing underlying has actually changed. So why do we have such a heavy tendency to use that as the source of truth?
Yeah, it's like to Armin's example, like can people, maybe it's more about than a human's ability. Someone has to create a truth and then it needs to be accepted by society for it to become true. And you can apply this to trust in general, right? Like the only reason currencies work is because they're underpinned by a so-called credible source that makes that currency valuable and stable for everyone else who uses it. But the second that trust starts to break down, and if that trust is, one example we wanted to talk about in here is the whole FIFA thing and Trump, but we can get onto that. But then who are the people that define what's true? And then who are the people who accept that? And because what if Armin's pancake method was actually a better way of doing it? Just because the chef with credentials told him that this is a better way of doing it. Like someone told the chef that that's the way of doing it. And someone told that person and so on and so on. But if you extrapolate that right back, someone had to invent that method at the start and they were probably crazies. Where does knowledge even come from? And maybe this plays into Cameron's point about, what is known and what is like derived known. I don't know. That's my crazy ramblings on that.
It comes from your internal value system. So basically, every human being, as they grow and develop through life, they value information differently. Now, obviously, each person will ascribe a different weighting to each different thing. When it comes to the truth, you will believe in truths you feel you want to believe in. I don't want to go into it, but ultimately, religious fanaticism, it's like truth is subjective there, but belief is like absolute. The trust aspect of things, it's trust is related to feeling. When it comes to the chef, you felt that person was a good chef. They were a good cook. They knew what they were doing, and when you know someone knows what they're doing, you have this respect for them, and then you begin to trust their judgment. And within that, I think you tend to feel for the person that might be telling you rather than the action itself. Because you've seen the guy's a good cook, when he tells you something, you're going to listen. It's like my engineers. I'm not an engineer. I know that they are, and some of them are brilliant. So when they tell me things, I listen. I trust their judgment because I've seen what they do, and I feel that they are going to be correct on this matter. But when it comes to it, whereas if you find someone that you don't particularly like, sometimes they can be telling you the truth, but you don't like them. So you don't feel like believing what they have to say. So personally, I would tie feeling to what people are willing to trust. And you have to have that form of bond and connection initially before the trust even develops.
So to build that onto Rachel's example then. So what was that moment in that kind of recognition where like I don't need to show up as this kind of corporate persona that I've been led to believe is what I need to survive on my own? What was that moment for you where you realized, actually I don't need to wear the suit, metaphorical suit, or whatever those examples are like. Well, and to Cameron's point about the feelings, what was that kind of like revelation inside yourself, emotionally and feeling wise, that said, do you know what? I've got the confidence now to throw away the suit, as it were, and carry on this new kind of direction that I've just been exposed to?
I guess there wasn't one moment. There was several. It was an iteration of things, and like how lovely to find the corner of the internet where the weird and wonderful absolutely reigns, and then back to that how we built credibility bit. So the people that were sort of speaking a language I could understand and I resonated with, and who not necessarily looked similar, but had a similar energy or point of view or saying stuff that I could absolutely get behind. They had credibility on their side, so they had proof on their side. Either they'd been doing it for a while, they had content out there that had been published, they had successes with clients and themselves. Would I have kind of felt quite so aligned with them if there weren't those proof points? Maybe I've just gone, oh, they're nice, they're saying some hoo-hoo fun things, but actually without that credibility piece, that social proof, would I have been quite so open to their ways and messaging? I don't know.
I'd like to segue that a little bit, actually, because there's this really interesting idea that you're touching on, because a lot of the time, credentials and achievements are relative to accepted status quo. So, for example, that chef might be like, they might make dishes that are in demand and, not too crazy. That's, I don't know, like too weird tasting or whatever. And again, like taste is a relative thing over time and people's palates change, blah, blah, blah. So the point being that, and this is the segue part, when you're in a stage in which you're trying to be truly different or breaking out in some specific way, trying to be innovative in that sense, it's a lot harder to use the credentials thing because you're by definition kind of going against the grain in a lot of the ways. So I'd like to mention a couple examples here and hear you guys' take on it. And yeah, Cam, I'm sure you can relate to this, especially with what you're building and that being completely different to what's existing. So there's this constant battle between like the credibility part and well, actually just the tension of it, really, because you're going against the traditional status quo. Anyways, so these quotes are some of the greatest innovations historically that have ever been rejected. And it's really eye-opening in a sense where it's like these things that we accept as just day to day were completely foreign not so long ago. So the first one I'd like to start off with is the UK MP of 1903, where they were consulted on whether or not to kind of start investing in building motor cars. And he said, I do not believe that the introduction of motor cars will ever affect the riding of horses, presumably with a straight face. The next one is, so H.M. Warner himself from Warner Brothers, before rejecting the proposal for movies with sound, and I quote, who the hell wants to hear actors talk? Now, that's just completely profound for me because it's like, how could you not have a movie with sound? And similarly, here we go. So the founder of FedEx, when they were initially proposing the idea of kind of mass logistics and distribution in presumably their dissertation. So the marker the professor wrote, the concept is interesting and well formed, but in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible. So they're really just posing the question of how do you know when to trust your guts on some things?
And
Because
that feasibility piece is like so linked to Cameron. Like, as soon as you said that, I was drawn to the engineers saying to Cameron, "That's not feasible, right?" Like, come on, like where does that new world lie?
Well, yeah, before you go it starts with a dreamer. All right. You have to be able to dream first. No, like every sci-fi novel, every film that's ever been created is because someone is dreaming of what could be. And then eventually technology moves and things develop to the point where, like, what I'm building, I want to make it so Star Wars level technology is where we're at. We can build in space, we can build large ships in space, we can build anything in space using the blocks. But it was taking inspiration from all the sci-fi people that have dreamed previously, my own dreams in the arena to sort of like put the idea forwards. And luckily I have some basic knowledge and some understanding of physics. So I know where to go and I work backwards and just solve a problem. A lot of innovations come from someone dreaming of what could be and then just solving a problem because of necessity. A lot of it is, I know for me, I work backwards. So I start at the end and then incrementally do the steps to get there. I don't know if it works differently with anybody else.
Armin, you work in innovation. Like, what's your thoughts on this? The dreamer versus reality kind of line that we have to cross or follow to some degree. but also be confident with deviating from it, like Alex said.
And what I, say to anyone in my classes or courses or, all of our meetings is that, in my opinion, innovation is just a new bond between two existing data clusters, actually. We just, creating new bonds between data that is in the world, And because of that, I think that dream is about what we know about, two clusters of data that we want to connect them to each other. So, for example, we cannot dream or we cannot actually say a new color. I don't think anyone can call a color, name a new color that does not exist, because we cannot imagine that, we cannot dream that. Because colors, and for example, I told you that you cannot think right now about a pink elephant. So right now you're thinking about the pink elephant in your mind. You cannot not think about that actually. So that dream or that innovation, I think, is based on the current data we have. And after that, we can, just make new bonds.
That's a really interesting perspective on it because, like, yeah, I built this thing called Node, and we can talk about it offline. But Alex, I'm drawing that connections to different data points and nodes to try and find blind spots to innovate in. So we should definitely pad that out. But another question I had was, and this one's aimed at Alex and Albert and Doug. Sorry, if you could go back in time and get to that moment when you actively took, in retrospect, the wrong direction, but you were so confident in that moment, would you prefer to be the kind of person that just blindly follows the sat nav or the directions, or are you actually secretly happy that you had the confidence and ability to even deviate from what was the status quo, and that status quo being the kind of directions that the system is telling you to go down? That can be kind of metaphorically aligned to following the status quo in life. Are you glad ultimately that you took the wrong decision, even if it was wrong? Or would you rather be
Yeah, for me, definitely. I actually enjoy being proved wrong. I think it always teaches you a very valuable lesson, right? It's refreshing to be actually able to switch in your mind that, wow, I was wrong, but I had good intentions, right? I wanted to achieve something and it didn't work out, but it's fine. I just go the other way and it will be better. So, in fact, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't feeling bad about myself. And yeah, I actually laughed a lot when we, with my friends, discovered that it's a different way because my friend was going the right direction and I didn't trust him enough. Yeah, but it was funny. I think the best way to like be really persuaded into something or to trust the fact is that you must first test it yourself, or you have to find a credible source, as we've spoken about. And yeah, then it connects all the way to critical thinking and information, disinformation. Yeah, I just think that credibility is one thing, but do you really get to believe it in the end without actually testing it or living through it? Yeah. How about you, Doug?
To a song written by a 4-year-old this week, and one of the key points is it says, "I like being me," and I do. I like being me. One thing that I might be prone to do is overthinking, and sometimes it's better to make a decision that's the wrong decision, but you do actually change your position. Following my instinct there turned out to be wrong, but then maybe I saw somebody that I wouldn't have seen otherwise, or I might have seen a shop window that gave me an idea for an invention. One thing I really dislike is astrology, where it's just nuts. It's absolute bollocks. And we've known that, or should have known that, for at least 400 years. Prior to that, when we didn't know about the planets and the way things are, why not? But when you know that the stars that you think look a bit like a crab are billions of miles apart and not even the same constellations, why should that mean anything about your life? And also, the people that have written down how that's affected your personality, you bugger all. Where's their evidence that it's just utter crap? However, I can see a value in it now that I hadn't seen before, and that is sometimes it is better to do something with confidence than to just stay in a state of, oh, I don't know what to do. And that happens in military cases, I think. If you stay where you are going to get hit because there's been a series of mortars that are getting closer. They know where you are. You've got to move. And if you spend too long deciding, oh, should I go left? Should I go right? But you think, the stars told me this morning that if I'm in difficulty, I should go left.
That's how I pretty That's how I survived my 10 years in the army. I just looked at the sky. But anyway, no, to your point about indecision, I think, yes. I mean, one of the first lessons we learned at Sanders was one of the worst things a leader can do is not make a decision. And that doesn't mean that sometimes doing nothing is the wrong decision. Or tactically, sometimes doing nothing and staying still could be the right choice at that moment. And it's not about right or wrong. You know, again, here we're not looking for perfection. But if you are indecisive and do nothing, and then you're gonna lose the command and respect and the tactical advantage and all that sort of stuff. So it's not about always just needing to move, but making a decision when it matters is one of the most important things a leader needs to do, even if it is.
I would say be careful about that, because right now AI may kill us all, and they've happily made the decision to proceed.
But isn't that just a human, like to the point about curiosity and status quo? There's always going to be a percentage of people that, for whatever incentivizations they have, normally it's money, greed, power, dominance, all that sort of stuff, will always continue to innovate. And some people just innovate. I mean, you like to think that science.
Some do, some choose not to. Like the British government after World War II chose to bury the computer because they felt it was a bit too dangerous technology, too powerful for people to have. So they sort of like squashed it. Whereas other people, you know, who might be a bit more capitalist, would not do such things with their technology. I don't know, some people have a moral concern, other people don't. And it's usually the ones that don't that do things the rest of us consider, well, that wasn't okay.
Well, here's a good question on the theme of this then, because I feel like I'm confident that humans will always find a way to keep adapting. And even if like let's say AI or like another technology, let's say some emergent technology that we haven't put a label on yet. Let's say there's some technology. We don't know if it's good or bad. It's coming. Is it even possible in humanity anymore for that technology to be suppressed? My feel is that no, it'll always find a way out. And then even if you want to avoid it, like if that technology becomes dominant in society, you are just forced to keep up. And it's the arms race. Like, is that true? Or will there ever be a time in humanity when it will literally just be like, okay, everyone agrees we should black box this and never ever talk about it again?
There will never be a time where that happens. Remember, we're dealing with 8 billion different sentient creatures that each have their own volition and interests. So the likelihood of coordinating all of them is astronomical. We can get a general, like, you know, laws, legal frameworks are done because they're practical. You know, like you don't murder people because otherwise a group of people will come and murder you. You don't steal from people because otherwise a group of people will probably come and murder you. Yeah, there are practical aspects to our legal frameworks.
Hey, I'd just like to introduce Ope, who's just joined the call. Hi, Ope. For those of you who don't know, she is the curator of TEDx in Jersey. So that's how we met and connected. So are you there?
TEDx in Jersey.
TEDx in Jersey, yeah.
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here. Not a nice background, so I'm not going to turn on my video, but it's lovely to be here. Thank you, Dan.
We're just to catch you up. The topic of today's call is kind of basically like what is it in our lives that we're so confident about that we could actually be wrong on? And at the start, everyone gave examples of those moments in life where you were so confident, but actually it turned out to be wrong. And we're just kind of unpacking that individually, societally. We're bouncing around all sorts, which is always what happens on these calls. So yeah, if you take a minute and think of maybe there's a moment in your life you'd like to share when you thought you were right, but you turned out to be wrong, we'll come back to you. But hey, while you're thinking, Cameron, I wanted to drill in. So I know we're kind of picking on you a bit today. One of your examples earlier about dropping the hammer on the foot and knowing that it's going to hurt. I want to drill into that because we're getting into kind of like Schrodinger's cat territory here. You know it will hurt, but the question is, if your foot was numb, and the reason I say this is because I'm dealing with this right now. I've got nerve damage in my left foot. If my foot is numb and doesn't feel the pain, did it actually hurt? What is the definition?
No. Right. No. See, right. You're talking about physical reality. You're not talking about knowledge. Yeah. The concept is, what do you know? Yeah. Now, if you know your foot is numb, you know that dropping a hammer on it is unlikely to hurt. That's your knowledge of your situation.
Okay.
What the situation is doesn't really matter, but your knowledge of it it's immediate and it's consequential. Whereas if you threw the hammer to the side into the air, you have no idea if it will hit someone. So you don't know it will hit someone. It could, you think it might or whatever, but you do not know. Whereas if you drop it on your foot, or like my foot's not now. If I drop it on my foot, I know it's going to hurt.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. So just to rebut this, right? So fine. Ideally, you're not dropping any hammers on anyone's foot, but you won't ultimately know if it's going to hurt. I mean, you've got data, a sample set that maybe is 100% chance of it hurting, but I could also have the other argument where it's like a turkey has 1,000 reasons to trust a human until Christmas comes around, and on day 1001 the sample set changes, in which case it's like you don't actually know that with definitive.
A turkey has zero reasons to trust a human, Alex. When the axe drops is irrelevant, yeah? The trust is false. Like there is no need for a turkey to trust a human at any point in time.
But I guess it's kind of like to the nerve damage, right? There was a moment when I knew I had nerve damage in my foot, and there was a moment I didn't. And up until that point, I thought my foot was normal. It was when I tried to tap a beat with my left foot and I realized I couldn't lift my left foot off the ground. And it was one of those weird, almost profound moments in my life where I'm like, hang on, something's wrong here. I can't lift my foot. And then I started second guessing, well, could I lift it before? Like, has this always been the case and I just never realized it? I drive with an automatic, therefore my left foot has become lazy to that movement. Like, how can I benchmark it? And I had to literally find an example in life where I was like, well, I'm left-footed. So I used to be able to go outside and do this football trick with my left foot where I could roll up the ball and lift my toes and hold the ball against my ankle. I was like, that's my benchmark. I went out and I couldn't do that. And it validated to myself that something was wrong with my foot because it was like weird, right? And like, fine, if that moment had been dropping the hammer and I didn't feel it and that was like, I expected that to hurt, but it didn't. Something's wrong. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I guess this is the whole point, right? Knowledge is it's this strange thing that we have this confidence that we know stuff, but it can always be flipped upside down, right? That's the whole point. Anyway, Ope, have you got an example of something in your life that you thought was right, but turned out to be wrong?
Yes, I just remembered one quickly. And the one I remember speaks to how quickly the world is changing. It's very simple. We were in a WhatsApp call and my brother said, share your screen. And I said, surely you can't do that. It's not Zoom. I can't share my screen. At the time, I didn't know that WhatsApp had enabled the feature for you to share your screen while on a call. But I was so confident, I kept saying, this is not Zoom. Surely I can't share my screen. But then he had to prove me wrong and showed me that I can share my screen. So in that moment, what I did learn was the world is changing, your knowledge is updating, and your knowledge is updating very fast. But how do you do that? What kind of cycles can I keep? What kind of things can I do to make sure I'm keeping the pace with the change of technology? But yeah, that's the one that comes to mind. I really did think I was right. I'm like, surely WhatsApp is just WhatsApp. It can't do that. But yeah, turns out it can.
Yeah. I think there's two further concepts or ideas that I'd like to kind of introduce to this whole space. So the one is questioning your kind of staged, so what you think you know, i.e., maybe at some point WhatsApp didn't support screen sharing, and that's kind of like been through the filter, the like airlock supposedly, and it's now safe. But in reality, times change, your updating changes. I mean, your perception changes and WhatsApp updates. So the question is like, how often, or is it worth like very critically reevaluating and revisiting a lot of the things you think you know? That's the first point. And the second point is, irrespective of whether or not something is right or wrong, there might be value in being kind of delusional about it. So, i.e., dropping a hammer on a foot, right? Like, irrespective of whether your foot is numb or not, or you want to find out or not find out, it's like, it's probably better to just believe that it's going to hurt, therefore don't try. So yeah, I'd like to unpack your guys' thoughts on, are there things worth not really thinking about? And to the other side of that, are there things worth constantly revisiting?
It's not worth thinking about an asteroid slamming into the planet and killing us all. It could happen, but like, there's no point thinking about it.
Yeah. But I think in today's society, it is kind of your choice, I would say, because it's currently so fast that it's probably good for you to revisit what you know every other while, but it will lead to the overstimulation that's just present in today's world. But you may choose not to revisit it so often and then being proved wrong and learn something new. That's how I see it.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind that Feynman said. One was that he tended to trust experts too much, like painters. He felt they've got a particular knowledge of paint. And one painter said that you should always add a bit of yellow to white, and that makes it better. And Feynman just trusted him. But afterwards, he thought about it and thought, oh, that's just something that some painters do. And there was yes, there was an occasion where somebody was asking him to invent a way of cutting out gravity, to have some sort of magic blanket that you could put between people, like gravitational attraction. And so you'd be able to make the scooters that could fly about and all that. And he was saying, yeah, I don't know how to do that. And then they were saying, but it would be really useful. Think of all the things that you could do. I said, yeah, it doesn't matter how useful it is. I don't know how to do it. So another thing is models, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And I think it's a useful concept to have that, okay, there's some things I believe, they may not be true, but they've stood me in good stead so far. There's been plenty of opportunity for them to have been proved wrong, but like thinking this table solid, that's useful. I can put things on it, but it's not solid. But within a certain domain, it works perfectly well to have the model that it's solid.
Christmas is the turkey analogy there, right? 1,000 data points and 1,001st can be completely different. Hey, well, I guess we'll start to wrap it up there because we're at 45 minutes already. This starts to go really quick. Hey, one point, there's two things that I want to kind of close off on, and everyone can have a chance to get there. Any questions or points or just things to park for next conversations. Two things. One is that I'm really keen to see Armin's original pancake mix and try it. Right. I just want to see what you were doing. You did it for 6 years. Like that I don't think that mix should die. I think it could be the start of something. And the other thing is, to Ope's point, like what life updates, again, using the kind of WhatsApp update metaphor here, what life updates might exist that you have zero idea of right now? Like, obviously, it's really, you can't know that, but there must be so many moments, new features, new things in life that we are just blind to right now. Like, it's crazy to think of that. I don't think anyone can answer that, because if you could answer it, then by definition, you know them. But it's an interesting thought to ponder. And maybe to Albert's point or to Alex's point, where do you go looking and what do you bother, where do you go exploring and trying to find these? And I guess maybe that is the definition of curiosity, right? Finding new things and learning new things. Maybe that is it. But they're the two kind of closing points that I wanted to get off my chest before everyone kind of says their goodbyes.
Yeah, two things. I think alien life somewhere out there, and also the superiority of AI. Maybe we don't know what's cooking under Anthropic's hood.
Yeah, I suppose we'll probably end it there, as the discussion today is more so a reflective kind of food for thought as you guys go on throughout the day. But yeah, I think the biggest one for me is essentially like, one, it's not as clear cut as you think. It's very easy to label things as right or wrong and binary and us versus them. But the reality is that no one thinks they're wrong. And that a lot of things can be true. Like, you can have different perspectives that in their own capacity are right to some degree. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is more so just the idea of constantly questioning what you think you know, because I think it's one thing to label yourself as like, I don't understand materials engineering, which is like a very easy objective one. But it's another to think, okay, I definitively think I understand this topic, which you may be right or wrong at. But it's like, if you definitively label anything, then you kind of put a ceiling on it and move on, which is great. But it's kind of like you could be building a Jenga tower on a slightly squiff block, and you go high enough and eventually it kind of, doesn't really work anymore. So yeah, those are my two biggest takeaways from today's session.
Great. Anyone else?
I joined very late, but I think it's on the point of revisiting what you know. It's my one thing I'll take away from today is just how do I revisit that? What do I need to do? It's something to ponder on, like you say. I don't have the answers. Where do you go looking? I don't know, but definitely worth thinking about.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have an amazing rest of the day. Hopefully, this is food for thought. And Armin, it's lunchtime for you, so have a great evening and see you next month. I guess sign up to these. We do them every month. There's always I think it's a fascinating conversation always, and I really enjoy them. So yeah, please share it with people who you think might also enjoy these sort of things, and just join the INSO community, which is where we have these conversations continuously and make opportunities for each other and new ideas, and as a genuine think tank and a place where we can challenge the status quo safely, and we can do it in a way that's proactive and always with the golden thread of innovation and how do we make the world better, right? So awesome. Thank you, everyone, and see you next month.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Cheers.